So, I hate to bring up something like this, but you know, you were in the band when Elvis passed. What happened? What was that like for you?
Well,
what was
yeah,
it like for the band?
August 16th, and I lived in Toluca Lake in Burbank, California, and um, I went to Burbank to get on we had a private plane, and we flew to Las Vegas and picked up our conductor, Joe Gershow, and singers and musicians. And so anyway, when we left Las Vegas that morning, we were flying out to, our first show was in Portland, Maine. And man, I don't know, we were in the air maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes. And you know, you can get quite a ways down the road, down the air in a plane, you know. So they called from Vegas and said, return to Vegas. The pilot, but they didn't tell him why. So anyway, the pilot said, well, I have to stop and refuel because I can't just turn around and go back. So we stopped in Pueblo, Colorado to refuel. And so I got out, and I walked outside the plane, and the trombone player, Marty Harrell, Marty came up to me and said, James, I'm gonna go call Vegas and see if I can get find out something. I said, oh, okay. So my wife was in Louisiana. I called, I was gonna go call her, and I didn't make it to the phone. Marty was on his way back. And he came up to me and he had tears in his eyes and he put his arms around me and said, Elvis died. I couldn't believe it, man. It was like shock, you know. I couldn't believe it. I said, is this a joke? He said, no, for real. And because the thing that came to mind was Vernon. His dad had been sick with the heart problems. And I thought maybe something happened to Vernon. But it was, this particular time, it was Elvis. I mean, it was a sad flight back to Vegas. We get back to Vegas, and I had a home in Vegas, and I was going to get off and stay there, knowing my wife was in Louisiana. I said, no, I'm going to go back to my home in Toluca Lake in Burbank. And Jimmy Wakely, a good friend of mine, the cowboy, Jimmy, picked me up at the airport, and it was raining. It was really a sad day. And he took me to my house, and he said, James, I want you to come spend the night with me and Inez, his wife. I said, man, I don't know. I really need to get on the phone. I want to see if I can get a flight to Memphis. I got on the phone. Joe, I called every airline I could think of, and they were completely booked up. I talked to a girl with American Airlines, and she knew me. She because she was a big fan of Elvis. She said, James, I got 500 people on waiting list, but give me an hour or two and let me see what I can do. So she called me back later and she said, you got an 11 o'clock flight tomorrow morning and don't be late. And I went and got on that plane, flew to Memphis, and it was a very sad thing, you know. I walked in the house, and I called my wife, and I said, meet me in Memphis. And so she did later. I picked her up later at the airport. And Priscilla wanted to take me in that room where they had Elvis in the casket. And I didn't want to do it. I said, I'm going to wait till my wife gets here. And Ann Margaret was there. Ann was in the room with Elvis. And she would go in for maybe 3 or 4 hours and then come out and go back in.
That long in there with it, golly.
Yeah, James Brown, man, he was in there for hours. He I don't know, I think they had to pull him out. He didn't want to leave. And Ann Margaret was in there a long time. And yeah, it was just, God, again, all the people driving down the funeral concession, going to the graveyard. The streets were just lined up with thousands and thousands of people. Just amazing. It was sad.